The sun rose, painting the forest of yet a grove in hues of gold and green. Birds sang softly, their melodies blending with the whispers of the breeze. Disciples sat in quiet anticipation, their faces turned to the Buddha in reverence. A young wanderer arrived, his steps hesitant yet eager, holding the weight of an untamed heart. "Sit here, dear one, and let us speak of the forest within." The wanderer seated himself, silent, as the Buddha began to weave his wisdom into the still air. To feel lost is the nature of the restless mind, wandering like a deer in search of a safer place. The Buddha continued. The mind leaps, like a monkey, from branch to branch, finding neither rest nor clarity. The wanderer nodded faintly, his heart slowly softening under the teacher's gentle words. To quiet the mind, dear one, you must first learn to anchor yourself in the breath. The Buddha inhaled deeply and exhaled with serene ease. Each breath reminds you of the present moment, eternal and unchanging. He motioned toward the trees, their leaves fluttering softly, their roots unyielding against the earth. See the trees? They sway with the wind but remain grounded, connected to life. The disciples leaned forward, their hearts absorbing the depth of his words, their minds eager to grasp his teaching. Long ago, the Buddha spoke. A farmer faced a decision between two fields, one fertile, demanding care, the other barren, offering ease. He looked upon the wanderer with understanding eyes. But clarity does not lie in pursuit, it rests in stillness. The Buddha paused, the disciples reflecting on the parable's message, its significance glimmering like morning dew. Tell me, wanderer, which field should the farmer choose to cultivate, knowing the nature of their soil? The wanderer pondered, his thoughts surfacing like a river flowing into clarity. No, dear one, striving is not the fault, it is forgetting to pause that misleads. The Buddha shared a tale of a great hunter who lost his way in pursuit of a deer. The hunter, driven by desire, wandered deeper into the forest, his goal blinding him to his path. The wanderer listened with intent as the Buddha spoke of the hunter's revelation. He climbed a high tree and saw that he had circled the same clearing many times. The Buddha paused to let the wanderer reflect. This clearing, dear one, symbolizes the present moment, waiting quietly amidst all the movement of your mind. The wanderer looked around him, noticing the interplay of shadows and light in the forest. So the way out lies within? He asked. The Buddha smiled. Exactly. When you quiet your mind and observe, you begin to see the clearing in which clarity resides. The wanderer lowered his gaze, his thoughts gently turning inward. And what of my fears? Blessed one, that cloud my clarity? The Buddha looked toward the sky, pointing at the shifting clouds. Fears are like clouds that obscure the sun. They are impermanent, moving with the winds of thought. He continued, when you focus on the breath, dear one, you become as the sun, steady, unaffected by the passing clouds. The wanderer began to breathe deeply, following the rhythm of life itself. It feels unfamiliar, he admitted, his voice trembling slightly. The Buddha reassured him. Transformation often begins in unfamiliarity. Dear one, trust the quiet within. It knows the way. A group of disciples passed by, their robes brushing softly against the earth. The Buddha called to them gently. Do you also seek clarity, as this wanderer does? They nodded, their eyes filled with curiosity. Sit with us, the Buddha invited. Gesturing to the grove, the disciples joined, and the Buddha spoke again, his voice resonating through their hearts. Clarity comes not through striving, but through remembering the stillness within. One disciple raised his hand. Master, how do we distinguish between illusions and truths? The Buddha picked a fallen leaf from the ground, holding it up. This leaf is truth, real in its presence, but illusions arise when the mind seeks to change its nature. He demonstrated, blowing on the leaf until it fluttered to the ground. Desires shift truths into distortions. The wanderer observed the leaf closely, his mind gradually unveiling the Buddha's meaning. So to find clarity, we must accept what is without altering its essence? He asked. The Buddha nodded. Acceptance is the first step toward freedom from confusion. The grove grew quiet, the lessons of the moment settling deep within the hearts of all present. The wanderer, feeling the weight of his burdens lift, said, "Blessed One, your words are like water to a parched soul. I feel calm." The Buddha smiled warmly. Calmness is the seed, dear one. When nurtured, it grows into the tree of wisdom. The wanderer reflected, remembering the hunter who found clarity in the clearing. I will sit in stillness and breathe. Blessed One. The Buddha rose, his robes gliding gracefully across the forest floor. Remember, dear one, the present moment is always here, waiting to embrace you. The wanderer bowed deeply, gratitude shining in his once clouded eyes. I will carry your words in my heart. As the Buddha departed, the disciples remained seated, their breaths harmonizing with the rhythms of the forest. The wanderer stayed among them, his mind gradually finding the clearing within the forest of thoughts. Though the path ahead remained unseen, his heart was no longer adrift. In the stillness of Jetavana, under the great Bodhi tree, wisdom blossomed like the flowers of spring. The wanderer, now quiet and steady, began to understand the beauty of the present moment. No longer lost but found, the grove breathed peacefully, held by the teachings of the Buddha, timeless and true, guiding all who sought clarity. The moon rose gently, illuminating the grove, casting soft light over those gathered in silent meditation. The wanderer whispered to the night, I am here, present, and no longer afraid. The forest listened, holding his words as the sacred echoes of transformation filled the air with grace. Another day dawned, golden light spilling over the monastery, awakening life with its gentle touch. A group of disciples gathered nearby. The Buddha walked toward them, his robes brushing softly against the earth, his presence calming their restless minds. In the midst of the assembly, a young disciple hesitated, raising his hand with uncertainty. Blessed One, I seek clarity in my path. The Buddha paused, allowing the tension of the tale to sink into the minds of his listeners, creating a moment of reflection. His actions neither protected the gem nor brought him peace. Sit here, dear one, and let us speak of scattered thoughts. The disciple sat, his heart brimming with hope. As the Buddha began to weave his teaching into the air, many wander in pursuit of understanding, forgetting that clarity resides in stillness. The Buddha said, his voice serene, let me tell you a story of a jewel lost and found. The disciple leaned forward, eager to listen, his eyes fixed upon the teacher. In a distant village lived a farmer who wore a precious jewel around his neck. Secured on a string, began the Buddha. The disciples listened intently as the tale unfolded, their minds drawn into its meaning. The jewel was rare, its beauty unmatched, and its value immeasurable. One day, the farmer thought he had lost it. The Buddha paused, letting the weight of the story settle in their hearts. He searched the fields, the bushes, and even the jars of grain in his home. Desperate to find it, he spent days in anguish. Believing the jewel was gone forever, the Buddha continued, his voice steady as the morning light. And yet, on a quiet morning, as he drank from the village well, he saw the jewel glimmering. The young disciple furrowed his brow. Where did he find it? Blessed One? Did he retrieve it from the depths of the well? The Buddha smiled softly. No, dear one. The jewel never left his neck. Its presence had always been there. The disciples murmured among themselves, pondering the meaning of the farmer's discovery. The Buddha addressed them, his words flowing like a gentle stream. The disciples exchanged glances, their own reflections mirroring the wisdom shared in the simple yet profound teachings. The Buddha addressed them all, his presence filling the grove with a sense of timeless connection. "This leaf holds truth in its essence," the Buddha explained, his voice unwavering. "To see it clearly, we must observe it with stillness." He placed the leaf gently on the ground, allowing it to rest undisturbed. When the mind is still, clarity shines, as the jewel reflected in water. Another disciple spoke, "Blessed One, fears seem to scatter clarity, pulling us into shadows we cannot escape. How can we overcome them?" The Buddha gestured toward the sky, where clouds drifted across the sunlit expanse. "Fears are like clouds, fleeting and impermanent, yet they can obscure the light within." The Buddha gazed at the group, his presence calming their anxious hearts. "Focus on the breath, dear ones, for it is your anchor to the present moment." He continued, "In the present lies clarity, untouched by fear, like the sun shining behind the clouds." A disciple named Ananda spoke softly, his voice thoughtful. "Master, we often seek clarity in the outer world, in answers and teachings. Is this a mistake?" The Buddha regarded Ananda with understanding, his words flowing like water in the stream. "To seek clarity outside oneself is to search for the jewel beyond the neck where it resides," the Buddha answered. "External seeking may guide you, but the essence of clarity lies within your own stillness." The disciples nodded, their hearts beginning to grasp the profound truth of his words. The Buddha continued to speak, his voice soothing their restless minds. "Imagine the farmer's relief when he found the jewel, not through striving but through the stillness of reflection." One disciple asked, "Blessed One, how can we remain still when distractions constantly pull us away from clarity?" The Buddha observed a nearby mango tree, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. "Observe the mango tree," the Buddha said, his voice carrying wisdom as soft as the rustle of leaves. "The wind moves the branches, yet the roots remain firm, connected deeply to the earth." He gestured toward the tree's roots, exposed near the surface. "These roots symbolize mindfulness, anchoring you amidst the movements of your thoughts," the Buddha explained. "Let your breath guide you, as roots ground the tree, and clarity will arise naturally." The disciples fell silent, their minds absorbing the wisdom of the teacher's words. The Buddha rested his gaze upon the young disciple who had asked the first question. "Tell me, dear one, what distracts you most from your clarity?" The disciple lowered his gaze, speaking with hesitation. "My doubts, Blessed One, cloud my mind and make clarity seem distant, unreachable." The Buddha nodded, his expression kind. "Doubts are like ripples in water, dear one, distorting reflections but never changing the water's essence." He pointed to a nearby pond, its surface shimmering under the sun. "Observe the pond, still and clear, where reflections of trees mirror the truth." The young disciple gazed at the pond, his thoughts beginning to quiet. "Allow your mind to become still. Like the water in the pond," the Buddha said, "clarity will emerge as reflections do." The disciples felt their hearts lighten, their burdens softened by the presence of timeless wisdom. The Buddha walked to the center of the grove, his movements graceful and purposeful, his aura serene. "Remember, dear ones, clarity is not far. It is closer than the breath you take, always within you." The young disciple closed his eyes, breathing deeply, his thoughts quieting as the Buddha's teachings settled in his heart. The others joined, their breaths harmonizing with the rhythm of the present moment. The grove remained peaceful, held in the embrace of the Buddha's words. Timeless and true, the light of wisdom illuminated their minds as they reflected on the jewel within. Another day passed as golden sunlight filtered through the mango grove, casting tranquil shadows on the earth below. A merchant arrived at Jetavana Monastery. His steps hurried, his face etched with worry about his future. He bowed before the Buddha, seeking wisdom, his voice trembling with anxiety. Blessed One, my trade suffers, and I fear the uncertainties ahead. How can I make decisions with clarity? The Buddha regarded the merchant with calm compassion. Walk with me through the grove, and let us speak of the fears within your heart. The merchant followed the Buddha along the winding path, the rustling leaves soothing his restless thoughts. The Buddha stopped beside a mango tree, plucking a ripe fruit from its branches. Handing it to the merchant, he said, "Taste this." The merchant bit into the mango, its sweetness surprising him. Blessed One, this fruit is perfect, ripe with flavor and refreshing to the soul, he said softly. The Buddha asked, "Tell me, is this mango of yesterday or tomorrow?" The merchant stared, puzzled by the question, and answered, "It is of neither. Blessed One, it is only of now." The Buddha smiled gently. Exactly, dear one, the present moment is all that truly exists, carrying clarity as a gift within itself. The merchant's brows furrowed as he struggled to grasp the deeper meaning of the Buddha's words. But the future feels uncertain. Blessed One, and my fears cloud my mind. The Buddha continued, doubt is like a shadow that cannot exist without light. Within doubt lies the potential for awakening. The monk, his shoulders relaxing, began to sense the gift hidden within his struggles. A spark of hope igniting within. Tell me, the Buddha asked, if a potter stops shaping clay after the first imperfection, will he ever create a vessel? The monk, smiling faintly, replied, no, Blessed One, the potter must continue shaping, learning from his errors to perfect his craft. Anxiety binds you to illusions, dear one, chaining you to shadows of what has not yet come to pass. He knelt beside the roots of the mango tree, tracing their pathways in the soil. The roots of mindfulness ground you, dear one, anchoring you in the present, untouched by the storms of fear. The merchant asked, Blessed One, is fear truly an illusion? It feels real, overwhelming, impossible to escape. The Buddha nodded, his gaze steady. Fear is like a shadow, fleeting and impermanent, created by the movement of your thoughts. He continued, observe the shadow of this tree, always shifting with the sun, yet never affecting the tree itself. The merchant watched the shifting shadow, his heart slowly absorbing the Buddha's wisdom. So the present moment is the only reality, while fear belongs to illusions of the mind, he said. The Buddha nodded, his expression calm. Precisely, dear one, the present moment offers clarity, untouched by the distortions of fear and doubt. The merchant lowered his gaze, his voice trembling as he said, Blessed One, my mind often fixates on failures of the past, preventing me from moving forward. What shall I do? The Buddha gestured toward a fallen mango, its surface bruised, yet its essence unchanged. This mango, though bruised, still carries sweetness within its flesh, untouched by the imperfections of its skin. He handed the mango to the merchant, saying, Taste it, dear one, and tell me what you find. The merchant bit into the fruit, surprised by its flavor. Blessed One, it is sweet and nourishing. Despite its bruises, he said. The disciples, too, rose, their spirits lifted by the light of understanding, their hearts united in the shared journey of awakening. The forest held its peace, cradling the energy of transformation, a sanctuary of wisdom and truth. The merchant asked, but how can I embrace the past without losing myself in regrets and sorrow? The Buddha gestured toward the grove, its harmony undisturbed by the occasional fallen branch. Accept the past as part of the path that brought you here, as trees accept their fallen limbs without grief. The Buddha continued walking through the grove, his steps measured, his presence serene, guiding the merchant toward clarity. He paused beside a stream, its waters flowing gently, reflecting the sunlight in rippling patterns. Observe the stream, the Buddha said. His voice steady. It flows forward, never turning back, yet it carries the essence of all its journey within. The merchant knelt beside the stream, watching its currents, his heart lightened by its peaceful rhythm. Blessed One, does this mean I must let go of regrets entirely? He asked. The Buddha nodded. Letting go is not forgetting. Dear one, it is learning to carry the lessons of the past lightly. The grove, timeless and eternal, held the memory of the day's teachings. A testament to the power of perseverance and trust. The monk, though distant now, carried the light of the teachings. His journey a continuation of the wisdom received. The sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold. A reflection of the harmony awakened. The disciples meditated in silence, their hearts aligned with the truth shared, their minds nourished by the Dharma. Each choice you make becomes a seed, nourished by mindfulness, growing into clarity with time. The merchant nodded, breathing deeply, his thoughts quieting, the future no longer clouded by fear. The monk, once troubled, now walked with confidence, his heart alight with purpose, his spirit free to soar into the infinite. The grove, bathed in the soft glow of twilight, seemed to hum with the sacredness of the day's events. The merchant bowed deeply, gratitude shining in his eyes, his heart lighter than before. Blessed One, your teachings are a light in the darkness of my mind. I will carry them with me. The Buddha smiled warmly. Carry them not as burdens but as gifts. Dear one, illuminating your path with each mindful step. The merchant rose, his spirit renewed, his burdens softened by the presence of timeless wisdom. He smiled, nodding knowingly. You chase permanence in joy. The disciples gathered under the Bodhi tree, breathing deeply, their thoughts harmonizing with the rhythm of the present moment. The forest echoed the sacred teachings, timeless and true, illuminating the path of transformation for all. The grove breathed softly, its silence carrying the wisdom of the Buddha, eternal and unchanging, guiding seekers toward the light within. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.